On Friday night at 8:07 p.m., high above the city, Angel soared through the night, landing gracefully on the balcony of an apartment where laughter and conversation spilled from inside. Stepping into the room, the Angel greeted the group. "Hi, am I late?" Sue Storm reassured him with a smile, letting him know that the game had already started, but that they saved him a seat. He was the last one to arrive. Inside, some of the world's greatest heroes gathered around a poker table, their focus locked in the game. Angel nodded to Reed Richards, offering greetings from Professor Xavier. Dr. Strange, studying his cards, confidently announced his hand, ace high with a queen. A pause, followed by Johnny Storm, reminded him that he had lost yet again. It was the 12th time that night. Johnny explained that three of a kind easily beat ace high, and practically anything else did too. Except for king high. Across the table, Black Cat chuckled as she collected her winnings. She questioned whether he had ever played poker in medical school, to which Spider-Man quipped that perhaps they should switch to tarot cards instead. Reed Richards urged the group to go easy on Strange, reminding them that he was still new to the game. Black Cat turned her attention to Johnny, pointing out that he had folded in the last hand, despite clearly having a strong set of cards. She warned that his every thought was written all over his face, making it too easy to read his next move. In response, Johnny's eyes ignited with flames as he leaned toward her. "Here you go, pussycat. Try reading my eyes now." Spider-Man interjected, telling Johnny to settle down. Every year, a select group of heroes gathered for a friendly poker game. With the proceeds going to a charity of the winner's choice. The game of choice was No Limit Texas Hold'em, though in this case, no limit meant a modest $20 buy-in. Each player brought their own unique style to the table. Black Cat was a special invitee. She played like an expert thief she was, patiently waiting for the right movement to strike when no one was paying attention, often overconfident, bluffing more than she should, and enjoying the thrill of the game more than the outcome. Johnny Storm, on the other hand, approached the game the same way he approached life. He only took it seriously when he deemed it important. The Thing played like a bulldozer, an effective strategy, but still, a bulldozer is a bulldozer. Angel had a strong game, maintaining a calm and unreadable poker face. However, his focus tended to waver whenever Felicia Hardy, the Black Cat, entered his field of vision. Dr. Strange, however, had all the card skills of a brick. Despite his expertise in unlocking mystical secrets, the rules of poker remained an enigma to him. As for Spider-Man, his mask gave him an advantage, concealing his expressions. That, combined with his spider sense, made it easier to detect bluffs, but for the past few minutes, that same spider sense had been tingling, signaling something unusual. A sudden knock at the door drew everyone's attention. Sue Storm rose from her seat, wondering aloud who it could be. Sue speculated that perhaps they were missing a player. As she opened the door, everyone froze. Standing there, with his bodyguard, was the Kingpin, who just says, "Good evening." Johnny reacted instantly, flames igniting around him as he demanded to know what Kingpin was doing here. Kingpin assured them that he was relying on their sense of fair play. He only asked for a moment of their time. If they didn't like what he had to say, he trusted they would let him leave peacefully. He admitted that bribing people to uncover the location of their annual poker game had been no easy task. Kingpin made no effort to hide his disdain. He openly admitted that he didn't care for any of them and found their little charity game to be a pathetic display. $20 stakes wouldn't even make a dent in a real fortune. But despite his contempt, he had come with an offer. One of his bodyguards stepped forward, opening a suitcase packed with cash. Spider-Man, unable to believe what he was hearing, asked him if he was joking. Kingpin assured him that he never joked. He pointed out that he had clearly piqued their interest. Kingpin's offer was simple. He wanted to raise the stakes. He was willing to distribute $50,000 to each player and turn the game into a true high-stakes competition. winner takes all. If one of them won, they could donate the money to whatever small charity they pleased. And if he won, he would use the money to buy himself a boat, which he would name Hero's Folly, just to rub it in. As for their original $20 stakes, he would spend that on a fine Cuban cigar, acquired illegally, of course. Reed Richards questioned why Kingpin was going to such lengths to play against them. Kingpin declared that he fully intended to win, and when he did, they would be forced to sit back and watch as he humiliated them. The prospect of stripping them of their money and their pride was the most enjoyable profit he could imagine. The room fell into discussion. Spider-Man admitted that Kingpin was telling the truth. His spider sense wasn't detecting any deception. That meant Kingpin genuinely intended to play fair. Reed hesitated, still unsure if Kingpin could be trusted to uphold his end of the deal if he loses. Spider-Man just says, "I don't know, I just like to stuff it to him once and for all." Johnny was also eager to take the challenge. "Come on, Reed, what say we wipe that smug look off his face?" Looking around the table, Reed asked if anyone objected to Fisk's proposal. They could either take advantage of his generous offer or let him walk away. Silence filled the room. No one objected. Kingpin's smile widened. He knew he had them. Reed then says, "Well then, welcome to the game, Mr. Frisk." The game was officially underway. An unlikely gathering of heroes and criminals seated around the table with high stakes and even higher tensions. 5 heroes, 2 thieves, and a total pot of $300,000. And an overwhelming amount of attitude filled the room. Dr. Strange confidently declares he was all in and pushed his entire stack of chips forward. Moments later, he sat in stunned silence, staring at the table in disbelief. His attempt at a bold move had backfired spectacularly. Spider-Man informed him that going all in on a pair of 3s was a terrible idea, especially against the money leader. Johnny Storm was even less forgiving, openly questioning the doctor's sanity. Reed Richards announced that they had their first casualty of the evening. With that, Dr. Strange had officially been eliminated. But Strange wasn't done yet. With the snap of his fingers, a fresh stack of money appeared before him. He was ready to buy back in. The Thing grumbled that the money wasn't real. It was made up. Strange assured them that it was legitimate, explaining that he had simply withdrawn it from his own bank account. By 9:55 p.m., things had only worsened for the master of the arcane. While the game continued, Sue Storm stood on the balcony, taking in the view, while Angel and Black Cat engaged in quiet conversation near the sofa. Meanwhile, the remaining players were still locked in their battles of wits and luck. Meanwhile, Johnny mocked Strange's repeated attempts to buy back in, dubbing him the human ATM, and noting his spectacular lack of skill. Spider-Man joined in, analyzing Strange's questionable energy, joking that folding on a full house was an advanced technique designed to lull opponents into a false sense of security. Kingpin, growing annoyed with their banter, finally spoke up. He found it astonishing that 2 so-called children managed to survive in a world run by adults, remarking that it was a miracle they even managed to put their spandex suits correctly every morning. Spider-Man, unbothered, quipped, "I like being a kid. It's what keeps me young and interesting. You'd be amazed at the stuff I see." Reed decided to humor the conversation and asked what the craziest thing Spider-Man had ever seen was. Kingpin answered first, "A class clown dressed in a spider suit." Spider-Man shot back with his own answer, "The Mafia." Kingpin acknowledged the comeback with a simple, "Touché." Dr. Strange proclaimed that the mortal mind could hardly conceive the truly bizarre, at least not as he could. The Thing insisted that he had seen plenty of weird things himself. Strange challenged this, asking if he had ever observed the mating habits of a 4-dimensional hyperfungus. Johnny, completely unbothered, chimed in with his own bizarre dating experience. He casually recounted a time when he had dated a trill, a species that consisted of 8 different genders. Things, he admitted, got kinda awkward. Reed turned to Spider-Man, asking what the craziest thing he had ever encountered was. Spider-Man thought for a moment before listing off some of the more absurd villains he had run into over the years. Then Spider-Man suddenly recalled an even weirder encounter: the Marauders. He launched into the story, explaining that one night he had been swinging through the back alleys behind the Trophy Club. Johnny, always quick to interrupt, interjected that they had great chicken wings. Spider-Man ignored and continued, describing he made a turn near the National Instruments warehouse. Again, Johnny cut in, mentioning that his friend Phil worked there. Frustrated, Spider-Man said, "Dude, who's telling the story?" Johnny apologized, letting him continue. As Spider-Man reached the warehouse, he suddenly heard shouting. A group of thugs was loudly demanding money from terrified bystanders, yelling about how angry they were. Without hesitation, Spider-Man swung in, quipping as he threw a punch, reassuring the victims that he had everything under control. But something felt off. The thugs barely put up a fight, practically walking into his punches. They didn't even attempt to dodge or defend themselves. It wasn't until he landed the final blow that he noticed something bizarre. Their guns were made of wood. Before he could process this, one of the so-called criminals enthusiastically asked Spider-Man to hit him again. Confused, Spider-Man hesitated. The man insisted, just a little whack upside the head or something. Before Spider-Man could respond, another man dressed in women's clothing scolded him, reminding him that they weren't supposed to ask. Now, completely baffled, Spider-Man tried to make sense of what was happening. The first man lowered his request. "Just a shove. Right here, in the chest." Spider-Man faultily refused. "No, that's weird." Instead of backing down, the man revealed a bruise. He proudly exclaimed that Captain America had hit him right there with his shield. Other men chimed in, bragging that Daredevil had almost sat on him once. Almost. He had gotten really close. It was only then that Spider-Man realized what was going on. These weren't ordinary thugs. They were part of a club called Masochist Marauders, a bizarre group whose main goal in life was to be beaten up by superheroes. To make things even stranger, one of them had even offered Spider-Man a free membership. The room erupted in laughter as Spider-Man finished his story. As the night wore on, the poker game had dwindled down to just 3 players: Spider-Man, Kingpin, and The Thing. The Thing decided to make his last stand, pushing all of them into the pot. The Thing revealed his cards, 3 sevens. Kingpin turned over his cards. He had a flush. The Thing was out. Now it was just Spider-Man and Kingpin. Kingpin, as always, remained smug, commenting on Spider-Man's unexpected luck, but dismissing it as ultimately meaningless. He claimed he could read Spider-Man's body language, knowing exactly what he was holding. Spider-Man raised the bet by $500. Kingpin wondered aloud if this was a bluff. The bet was now up to Fisk. Kingpin deduced that Spider-Man had 2 pairs, but doubted they were higher than queens. He relished this part of the game. The psychological warfare, the moment when the strength of one's character was truly tested. He mocked Spider-Man's lack of patience and resolve. Confident in his read, he declared himself all in, shoving his entire stack into the pot. He smiles and says, "Go ahead. Let's see if you have the nerve." All eyes were locked on the final play. Spider-Man hesitated for only a moment before pushing all his chips in as well. It was do or die. Kingpin, unable to contain his excitement, suddenly erupted. "Full house! Queens over 9s! I knew you didn't have what it takes! You lose!" Kingpin basked in his apparent victory, smugly thanked everyone and made a joke about treating his cigar salesman. But Spider-Man wasn't finished. With a slow, deliberate reveal, he laid down his cards. "Like I was saying, I got 2 pairs, 2 9s, and 2 more 9s. That makes 4. Read 'em and weep, fatso." Kingpin's excitement froze. His mind struggled to process what he had just heard, but it was already over. Spider-Man swept the pile of chips toward himself as Kingpin seethed in disbelief. His bodyguard, sensing his rising fury, moved to calm him down, but he brushed them off. "Leave me alone, if you want to live." Dr. Strange turned to Johnny and asked who had won. Johnny just simply smiled. Later, with Kingpin gone, the atmosphere lightened. Across the room, Black Cat flirted with Angel, slipping him her phone number. Dr. Strange began preparing to leave, while Spider-Man and Johnny relaxed on the sofa. Johnny was replaying the moment in his head, laughing at the priceless look on Kingpin's face. Meanwhile, Reed and Sue counted the money Kingpin had left behind. Spider-Man asked Reed for a favor. He wanted the money sent to Cerebral Palsy Research Foundation in Kansas. Reed assured him, "No problem at all. That was a great win, Spider-Man. I'm sure Mr. Fisk didn't think so, mind you." As Spider-Man prepared to leave, he plucked a $20 bill from the stack. It wasn't about the money. He just wanted to stuff it to a couple of superheroes, because he's tired of getting stuffed himself. "Here, let me just take 20 for cab fare." With that, he leaped off the balcony. Watching him go, Reed said to himself, "God, I love being a hero." As Spider-Man soared through the New York skyline, he carried a bouquet of flowers with a card attached to it, to MJ. Then suddenly, he started laughing. First, a chuckle, then a full-blown cackle that echoed through the streets. He had done it. He had humiliated Wilson Fisk in front of everyone. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel.